Good morning, good morning. Welcome, our listeners. Welcome to this podcast that we're having today, Aurum Consultants podcast, where on this cold, crisp July morning, where we are going to discuss a few things that are of interest to you. My name is Anthony Kuria, a partner at Aurum Consultants, and with me today is my co-partner, Zipporah Kuria, and Mr. James Waithaka, a health and environmental health and safety consultant. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So,
Good morning.
how are you doing?
Morning to you.
Yeah, good.
Zipporah, how are you doing? You're good?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, James.
Morning to you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you.
All right. James, we had you last week
Yes.
when we discussed about workplace safety and compliance. And
Yes.
last week's discussion was awesome. I got
Thank
calls, I got texts telling us, "Wow, what you guys were discussing was superb. Can you continue with that conversation?" And that is why we thought, let's do a part 2 today with you, discuss more on workplace issues, especially on safety and health. And as you know, this is a very pertinent issue because of what we in Kenya and across the world are facing with the COVID-19 pandemic. And not wasting time, I would like to start with my co-partner at Aurum Consultants, Zipporah. Zip, can you tell us something here? We've been discussing about employers doing all manner of things, putting measures in place, as James had discussed last week. But the question you and I had, and today I want our listener to also get this: what are some of the things that employees can do to maintain safety in the workplace? Or is it just, or everything at the corner of the employer? Or do employees also have a role to play when it comes to workplace safety?
Thank you, Anthony. I think that's a very important question because I believe safety is a responsibility of everyone. We cannot just peg safety to the employer. The employee has a role to play when it comes to safety as well. And there's quite a number of things employees can do to actually ensure they maintain safety while at the workplace. And some of the things they can do, for instance, is make use of tools appropriately. If you've been given tools for work, then make sure you use them for the right job, use them the right way, use them the way they're supposed to be used. The other thing I think employees also need to be aware about is their surrounding. What are the things that are surrounding where you work in, the area that is designated for you to work in, or even the areas you walk around? What are those surroundings looking like? The other thing that is very critical is exit points. For instance, if we have a fire at the workplace, you as an employee, do you know actually where you need to go? Do you know what you need to do so that you can be able to exit where you are safely without getting injured or without compromising the safety of other employees? Again, if you find situations where there are things that are compromising safety at the work environment and there's nothing much you can do about it, it's important for you to also report those issues to your supervisor, because again, they might be well placed to handle that situation. So if there is something that needs to be reported, then you need to report it immediately. The other thing is wearing of PPEs. Currently, we have the current COVID-19 in our country. And again, a lot of us are not wearing our PPEs properly. And it's your responsibility as an employee to actually ensure you're using your PPEs properly. Because not only are you safeguarding yourself, you're also safeguarding the welfare of the other employees. So make sure you use PPEs properly, not just during COVID, but even during other times where you're required to use PPEs. Make sure you use the PPEs that have been provided for by the employer in the appropriate way. Again, if you've been, asked not to use some certain equipments because you don't know how to utilize them, then don't actually start doing guesswork or trying to do things that you're not familiar with, because again, it endangers other employees. So to actually respond to that question, the employee has a greater responsibility in ensuring they maintain safety at the workplace as well.
Wow. Thank you, Zippy. There is a big role that an employee ought to play in maintaining their own safety. Probably, James, you could give us a hint on that. What do you think, from your perspective, the role that employees ought to play in maintaining safety at the workplace?
Well, first of all, just starting from common sense, we know that everyone is responsible for their own safety. But now looking at it from the workplace aspect, when the Act, OSHA 2007, allocates responsibilities to the employer, it comes to a place now, it also allocates specific responsibilities to the employees, which are anchored in the law. And maybe just to jump the gun a bit and tell you what happens if an employee contravenes, the law states very clearly that if one is found guilty and a conviction is confirmed, then an employee can be jailed for up to 6 months or fined up to 50,000 shillings. And this is for an employee. And I know this is something employees don't like listening to, but that's a reality under OSHA 2007. So what does it tell the employees to do? First of all is to take care of themselves and those working around them. Secondly is to make sure that they follow all the rules and regulations that have been set by the employer for purposes of their own safety. So the employer has their own duties. They are meeting their duties and they've provided PPE, they've given you guidelines, they've issued permits to work, and all these rules that have been set to keep the employee safe. If the employee contravenes this, therefore then they are also liable because the employer has done his part. It's now upon the employee to play their part. Some of the very specifics would include things like making sure you use your own PPE, using the correct tools for the right job, failing or rather refusing to use tools that are not in good condition, making sure you don't destroy or rather vandalize equipment meant for your own safety. Keeping your PPE clean is also a responsibility to the employees, and also to report. Actually, an employees have a very clear responsibility that if you find a situation that endangers you and you have no control over, then you must report. But if you find something you can fix, let's say it's a chair in the gangway, that one you can remove. But if it is something that requires now you report to your supervisor, it is required by law that you report to your supervisor that situation so that it is corrected. It is upon the employee to also report any injury that happens to them to the immediate boss. Because if, let's say, you get hit, maybe a corner of a machine hits you as you're crossing by, and then you go home without reporting. Tomorrow morning, probably you had a minor crack on the hip. You come and tell us, I got injured, but you didn't report. So how does the employer take that? We don't know whether you do gym, we don't know your co-curricular activities. So it is required for every employee, for any injury you incur within the workplace, it's a responsibility for you to report to your immediate supervisor. So that now the supervisor escalates that depending on the processes within the workplace. And then eventually now it gets to DOSH through the legal reporting system that is required to be done.
All right. Wow. So to my listener, if you're employed somewhere, whether it's in a factory, whether it is in an office, remember you have your own responsibility. Do not say, that's the job of my boss. They ought not to do. Nikiumia ni shauri yao. No, you have a role to play. And if you don't meet your role, then there's consequences, both legal and obviously personal. Now, James, let me go to the next question, which I would like to hear from you concerning how does a business benefit from health and safety compliance?
All right. And I think that's a very pertinent question to any investor. Because, when you talk about doing audit and buying PPE, everyone looks at it as a cost. But in reality, if we are to make a business case for safety, where we are saying, this is the business sense. If I go for health and safety training today, the employer will be like, now, do my sales increase? Or what happens after this training? As opposed to maybe a sales training where you're telling people how to meet your sales, how to organize customer calls. That, of course, has a direct input into the revenues of the company. But remember, look at the analogy of a bucket with holes under it, where you're filling the water, but then it's dripping out. Those are the loopholes now that safety comes to seal. Because for every accident, there are medical costs that the employer will meet. There is lost time. Machines will be lost because accidents not only affect the people, they also affect the infrastructure within the workplace. They affect the property, they affect the machines. So it is a cost. We may not directly contribute to your revenues, But what we are telling you is safety comes to safeguard that which is very important. Your employees, your investment, your revenue, so that they are not lost. Because the legal costs of not doing this, and this is also what you call the iceberg principle. The costs you see are just the medical costs and, a little lost time. But look at how do you even quantify lost welfare in the market? Like Endmo Steel, for example, just to take as an example, due to non-compliance, millions of Kenyans have watched. And any company that is very sensitive on compliance by suppliers, they'd be like, we don't want to deal with them anymore until they put their house in order. That is lost business. You may not be able to quantify. But in reality, the costs are enormous. You lose a lot. And so you are saying we are not contributing into the input, but we are helping you not leak. You don't lose time. You don't lose medical. You don't go into legal channels that waste your time. They waste your revenues. So the business case for safety is we help you keep your revenues where they should be. We contain the leakages.
Wow. That's right there. Risk management, risk controlling the risk factors. That, as the analogy you've used, a bucket that has received water from a tap. But if the owner of the bucket does not take care of the holes that are beneath or at the side, then they will keep putting water in there, hoping to use it for something else. But by the time they transfer the bucket to the intended use, it is halfway, drained because of issues to do with, as you said, health and safety, things to do with compliance, things to do with brand, your brand getting tarnished because of certain issues. So from your perspective, which I think is very powerful, is the fact that you who is listening to us as a business person, do not look at health and safety as an issue that is an irritant to your business. Instead, see it as a way to be able to bring a whole, to make your bucket or your business to be whole, so that it can be able to focus on its core activity, which is generating revenues, using it appropriately. I don't know whether you have something to add on that.
Well, I think that is very profound what James has just said in terms of having to ensure that your revenues are not leaking. Because a lot of times we look at some of these requirements as it's a headache. Why do I really need to do all these things? But it's a necessary evil, because if you don't actually do these things like James has said, then at the end of the day, your revenues will leak at some point. So it's very critical for us to actually ensure we maintain the necessary health and safety requirements at the workplace. And I think this brings us to the other question we tackled last week, but James probably can help us expound a little bit more on this. Yes, we are required to do all these audits, we are required to take all these measures. Then really, where does it end? What do I do with these reports when I get them? Are they important in the first place?
So, most employers look at the reports as an end to itself. That now I have the reports, I can put them in the shelf. If an officer comes, I'll show them. What you forget is that this report, already you've paid money to a consultant to generate a report, to identify the gaps and make recommendations. So you're actually doing yourself a disservice by not reading what you've been told to do, because that's what you paid for. So ideally, I would expect that now, if you have a health and safety committee, sit down with your committee, read the reports of these approved persons, come up with a compliance timetable and say, we are going to start with the easy ones, the ones that don't even have to, they have no expenditure, they have no capitation or some sort. So we say, for us to be able to make employees see the value, can we start by doing some of the simplest things? And you also consider the timeline the advisors have given. So even as you work within that, make a timetable that is flexible, that is achievable, because if again you make goals that are not achievable, the committee or the implementers are going to give up on this. So what you are saying is, read these reports, ask your consultant to actually make a summary for you. I know some consultants don't do a proper summary at the end, but it's required that you do a proper summary in a table, not very wordy, just a table. What has been identified? What corrective action has been suggested? What is the timeline? Work with this as a timetable, so that even the people you appoint in the workplace to, manage health and safety, they already have something to work with. They have key performance indicators that we need to have done this by this time. We need to have done a first aid training by this time. We need to have done an inspection and, drawn gangways. We need to have put up signages. These are the things that now are the outputs of these reports. So let the reports not be an end by themselves. Sit down, analyze these reports, come out with an action plan, and implement it. That is the beauty of having now a health and safety management system, because now you can see it at work. Even where you had a resistant management in terms of things that require expenditure, when you start with the small things and the effect is seen, no one will have a reason not to approve the budgets that are now required to do maybe a few changes here and there, based, of course, on the hierarchy of control of hazards.
Wow. Thank you, James. Wanjiku Kanyotu, thank you for joining us. We help you keep your revenues where they should be. We contain your leakages. That is very profound. Christopher, good one, James, containing the business leakages to ensure business focus. Thank you for joining us. Keep up in this podcast, and we'll give you more information on how to maintain health and safety at the workplace. And again, James, what I hear you saying is very critical to implement these reports. Otherwise, as an employer, I will be spending money just to comply with the regulator. But at the end of the day, it does not help me as a business if I don't implement the reports.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, that is James Hapo. You've hit the nail on the head, because on a practical level, you'll find many entrepreneurs, many managers. Okay, we've done this thing, we've filed it, it's done, put it in there. You forget that you've already spent money to get that report. You've paid a consultant to come and do all the inspection. You've met the labor regulations, that you've had a report, inspection is done, blah, blah, blah. But now the implementing bit of it, that they are who can do the implementation that are not costly. Basically, probably the James has come and said, you know what, you need to keep your walkways clear. You need to make sure that the fire exit is always, it's always available for people to run out if things go out of hand. So these small victories enable even the big ones to be taken care of. And something else to my listener, if you're a business person, remember there's something called Health and Safety Committee in the workplace. That's something, James, you spoke about last week, that it's important for any business that is running, that has a number of employees, to have, among other committees, a health and safety committee that will be able to deal with any safety issues whenever they arise. Now, James, there's something else that I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
We spoke, before we began this podcast, we spoke about the Department of Safety, Health, something, DOSH. Probably to our listeners who don't know what DOSH is, could you probably, before I ask the question, probably you could tell us what DOSH is?
Yeah, so DOSH, actually the full meaning is Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health Services. It is under the Ministry of Labor, and it is headed by a director. And the current director is called actually Dr. Nyandusi. Dr. Musa Nyandusi is our current director. So what DOSH does basically is enforcing authority for OSHA 2007. And how it is structured is such that now after the director has officers under him who are called OSHO. OSHO is an occupational safety and health officer. And every county ideally is supposed to have one, but in some counties where maybe there is the level of industrialization is low, you'll have maybe one officer serving maybe 2 or 3 counties. So moving around to make sure that the workplaces within that county are complying. Now, an OSHO basically, or Occupational Health and Safety Officer, is a very powerful officer, because they have the right to come to your workplace either day or night for them to come and do an inspection. And the outcome of that inspection can be 2 things. One, they can either give you an improvement notice if they find that there are things you need to do, and that's a very friendly notice, because they are telling you, you need to do 1, 2, 3, so I'm giving you 21 days to put your house in order. But if they come and they identify imminent danger, that if they walked out of that place, the possibility of someone getting injured or even losing their life is very high, they issue what you call a prohibition notice. That basically is to say close down until the following has been done. So those are the powers of the officer, and they are also the prosecuting authority in a court of law. If now they decide to, if you decide not to comply, then they take you to court.
Wow.
So that is how it is structured. Yes.
Okay. Hey, so there you are. We've now been educated about DOSH. Know that if you're running a business, you better meet the minimum, at least the minimum safety requirements that the government has put in place. Now, my main question was, now that we know what DOSH is, the question is, what is DOSH asking us to do with the new advisory? Especially
Good.
now with these pandemic advisories.
Yeah. So we all know we are in an age where we have the pandemic coronavirus, and various government agencies have been trying to deal with it. And first of all, we have the public health under the Ministry of Health talking about general public awareness and using masks and all that. But now, as we slowly go back to the workplaces, now the workplaces are now the zone where now DOSH comes in, and they are telling us it becomes an occupational hazard. COVID-19 is an occupational hazard, but how do we deal with it? So DOSH has issued out what you call an advisory, advising employers that as you go back to work, here are the irreducible minimums that we would expect you to put in place so that you keep your people safe, especially when they are working in the workplace. And so what are some of these things? And I'm just going to mention about 3 or 4, or let me say 5, but I'm going to do it in a very fast way so that we also keep time. First thing is a policy. DOSH is asking you, first of all, as a management, to commit through a document that we are going to make sure our people are safe during this period. So a policy is actually going to be like an addenda, because you already have a health and safety policy assumption. If you have it, then this is going to just be an annexure to what you already have. And now you're going to talk about COVID-19 and what you intend to do to keep your people safe. Secondly, you must communicate this policy clearly to the workplace participants, the employees. And the communication, the best actually is using imagery and very little written information, so that reading is not it's not something that people like doing a lot. So the more images you use about washing hands, about wearing a mask, about social distancing, the better. So let's communicate this policy. Let's communicate the hazard within the workplace. The third thing is about now the health and safety within the workplace. Disinfection of surfaces, availability of sanitizers, ensuring that all employees are using a mask. And actually, DOSH comes out clearly saying anyone without a mask should be denied access to this workplace. All right. Wow. And where possible, let the employer even provide the masks, so that you're sure your people are actually using. Because now, in the context of the workplace, a mask is actually now going to become a PPE. And if it is a PPE, then the responsibility is this. It is the responsibility of the employer. And now this is going to be a very murky area, because people are going to be saying, no, uko inje you never mask. But again, our purpose here is not to fight. Our purpose is to keep our people safe so that we continue being productive. All right. The third thing is about insurance, that is WIBA. And so basically, if you don't have WIBA insurance, you need to consider it, because they also need to confirm to you that they're going to cover COVID-19 as an occupational disease. So it's going to come in as an occupational disease. That is clearly mentioned also in the advisory. The other thing that has been mentioned in the advisory is about the return to work medical examination. And this is what we are saying: the doctor needs to give every employee going back to work a certificate of fitness. Under DOSH guidelines, normally you find that they are restricting these doctors to only be designated health practitioners. But in this case, the director made it very clear that you can go to any doctor registered under is it KPMDU or KMD? Yeah, they are the board, basically. If you're registered under the board and you're a doctor, you can actually do the medical examination and issue a certificate of fitness for return to work post-COVID. And what is the doctor actually looking out for? They're looking for symptoms. They're looking for travel history. The normal screening you will do so that you determine whether these employees fit to go back to work, or they need maybe to go for quarantine or further testing and such things. The other thing I want to mention is risk assessment. Risk assessment, and I think we touched on it last time, is also a requirement under the guidelines that you must assess the risk. Look at activities that might expose workers. Look at machines that are being commonly used. Look at door handles. Look at biometric access. Is there a need maybe to remove it so that doors are open and we avoid contacting surfaces? If a door maybe is one direction only, can you remove the handles, make the door swing both sides so that you only push in and push out, so that you don't have to do contact surfaces. So these are some of the things that DOSH is actually asking us to do. The last three actually is mental health. With COVID, we have a lot of issues. People have lost income. People have, there's been cases of gender violence cases at home, worry, anxiety. So DOSH is asking people to actually consider putting in place mental health support programs within the workplace. COVID has come and it has interfered with people's lives. So there is need. Maybe someone has lost a family member, a loved one. Maybe someone lost their income and they're coming back. People have been on half pay. Some have been on unpaid leave. How do they even meet the obligations? So there's a need to actually put up a mental health support program in the workplace. The last one is the issue of what do you do in case of a confirmed case within the workplace. So they're telling you, please follow the guidelines given by the ministry in terms of isolation and self-quarantine. Come up even with a response committee within the workplace so that it handles such issues. And the most important now, which has also been said within 30 days from the 6th of July, is that you must submit a health and safety audit. And this audit, if you are still within the 12 months, you have done an audit and it has not expired, what you're being asked to do is just provide an annexure, or rather an addenda to that report. And this is what we have done as far as COVID-19 is concerned within our workplace, that we have posted communication, we are talking to our people, we are sanitizing surfaces, we've provided sanitizers, masks, gloves, whatever. We've done a risk assessment. So that report actually needs to go to DOSH. So you need to talk to your consultant, whoever did your audit reports, and ask them, could you come back and do an annexure to this, because we are required to submit even as we are going back to work. And the return of date back to work is the day that the president opened up. And I know people are saying, but we never closed. Whatever measures you took in place, some people are working from home. If they are coming back, then it means you're actually returning to work. It does not mean that you had closed. Only the people who had closed are the ones who are required to do this. Any minor measures that have been made, basically you're returning to work. The date is 6th of July when the president opened up. And so you need to do that as required.
Wow, James, you are a battery of information, my friend. You,
Thank you.
you are a battery of information. To my listener, if you are right there writing notes like I am, putting down the things that are required to be done, and you're wondering, okay, how do I comply? When I listen to you, James, some of these requirements are not very difficult to do, even if you're a micro enterprise. It's just an issue of just the same way in your house, you make sure that your house is clean, you've washed the house, you've done what needs to be done, in terms of cleanliness, safety, and all those kind of things. Then take the same mindset to the workplace where you have the necessary small steps that you've taken. If it's getting, someone like James to come and help in organizing the required safety measures, then you can get in touch with us at Aurum Consultants. We will be able to assist you and connect you with James. Now, let me not say a final question. I have another question as we come towards the end of this podcast.
Yes.
And this one I'll ask both of you, both Zippy and James. Is the risk of COVID-19 in the workplace as high as it is being perceived? Zippy, probably you can give us your perspective, and then we'll talk to James.
Thank you, Anthony. We are getting very useful information from our expert, James. And to respond to your question, whether the risk is as high, I think we need to get to reality of life. COVID is here with us. COVID is not going anywhere anytime soon as things are looking. But I think it's important for us to realize, just the same way you can get infected in the marketplace, you can get infected in the supermarket, it's the same way you can get infected at the workplace. And the reason I'm saying this is because every day I go to work, I go back home. You have no idea where I've gone after work. You have no idea who I'm interacting with. When I come back to the work environment and I'm not taking the necessary precautions, then I'm actually exposing anyone else who is coming in contact with me. So the truth is, infections are actually happening at the workplace. And the question should be to employers and employees, then how do we minimize these infections from spreading at the workplace? So my response to that would be infections are happening in the workplace.
Yes. James, what is your view?
My view is that the workplace is actually the new frontier. It's actually the biggest place now you're going to see infections rising. And the reason being, and you've seen this even on social media, people saying that people think social distancing is staying away from those people you don't know. But so long as you are around people you know, then you think you're safe. And you'll notice that as people are going to the workplace, when they're in matatus, when they're in the public, they're very cautious. Well, the caution is dropping, but you can see the level of cautiousness is a bit higher. And I think because also of the case of police will arrest you. When they get into the workplace, they're like, now I'm home, this is a place I know, these are my people. So I think these are not very bad people. They may not be as sick as those people out there. What you're forgetting is they also came with the same matatus, they also touched surfaces. And so dropping our guard within the workplace is actually going now to make the workplace the new frontier. And it actually is as we speak. And you've had even cases in the media. You hear of Pumwani Hospital, I don't know, about 40 nurses. That's a big number. You hear of Safaricom shop, lands, all employees there who are positive, and this is going to increase because people think that once we are in the workplace now, things can go back to normal. In the evening at 5, we now get our gear back. Let's be very careful because this virus is actually moving from person to person. And those people who think that after we sanitize table and fumigate the workplace, then we are okay. The virus is actually spreading more from person to person than even from the surfaces. So the risk is bigger when we are talking together because I see people dropping masks when they are talking. And then now you wonder, what was the point of the mask in the first place? So let's be very careful in the workplace. Let's observe the DOSH guidelines, even about meetings. You have been told if you don't have to do a meeting on physically, avoid it. If you have to do it physically, keep 2 meters distance and ensure that people are actually social distancing. Move some desks. We cannot remain in the same normal. You guys, this is the new normal. The new normal means that things will change. That space will have to, to be increased if we have to. That we may have to reduce the number of people working from the office because now technology has even proven to us we can be effective even working from home.
Yes.
We must realize that these are new times. We cannot live in the old times like we used to.
Yes. Wow. We cannot live in the old times. We got to change as individuals, as corporates, as business people, as a nation. We just have to accept that there is this pandemic at the moment. It doesn't hurt to put on your mask. It doesn't hurt to wash your hands. It doesn't hurt to keep distance. Let the pandemic pass. Now, the final question that I'll ask, and this one, I know this one, I'm sure every listener would want to get an answer to this. What do we do if there is a confirmed case in my workplace? Yeah, what do we do?
So that's a good one. That's a very good one. And I want to approach it from this angle and say that, first of all, expect a case in your workplace. I want to start by saying that. Expect a case in your workplace. And by saying that, therefore, we are already now going into a mode where we accept that in the near future, if not tomorrow, we are going to get a case in the workplace. When we get it, do we know who to call or do we know which facility to take someone to? Do we have someone, a room we can isolate? Do you have a procedure for identifying the close contacts to this person? Those are the things we need to start thinking about because you are going to get a case. I can promise you. I mean, this is a virus. It's going to spread. The numbers globally can tell you we are not any special. It's going to come to your workplace. So what you need to do, first of all, is that DOSH requires that any case that is confirmed, the employee has a responsibility to inform the management, and the management has a responsibility to ensure this person goes to a government facility, whether they pay either private or a government facility, and they make sure that they take care of that. The other thing I must mention is this. DOSH is very particular about protecting privacy, or rather the privacy of this information, and even just breaking stigma in the workplace. Because if we make stigma become such a big issue like it was with HIV, people will not come out and say, so I'll have this fever. Before niingie, I'll wash my face just to cool down the ambient temperature of the skin. Nikipimwa nionekane niko sawa niingie, because of stigmatization. So let's break the stigma. Let's ensure that if a case is confirmed, it is immediately attended to, and it is also immediately referred to the nearest facility.
Yes.
And of course, let's also now start identifying who are the close contacts, and then issues of quarantine and isolation must be followed. On this one, I'll tell you, familiarize yourselves with the Ministry of Health guidelines on isolation.
Yes.
And even home-based care. And I know people are still thinking, oh, nitapelekwa KU, nitapelekwa KMTC. The government no longer has that capacity, my friend. Read the home care guidelines. Know
Yes.
how to contain a sick person within your homes. And if possible now, this is now the employer comes in and also remembers what DOSH said. If you're able, can you provide transport to your people to reduce the risk? But I can tell you it is coming to your workplace. When it comes, medical care is important, isolation, self-quarantine, determination of who are the close contacts, and even sanitization of the entire workplace now that you've identified you have a case before we go back to working again.
Wow. That is it, my fellow listeners. No, this pandemic is coming right to where we work, if not at home, and we've got to be prepared. Please don't stigmatize somebody who has COVID. They are not exactly emanating with death. It's just an issue of something that they got, and it's something that can be treated. Thank you, Wanjiko Kanyotu, for the comments. The listing of the comments that James put forth. We appreciate your comments. Keep them coming. Zippy, do you have something to say as we wind down?
I think it's to reiterate what James has just said, and especially if we get confirmed cases at the workplace, because the truth is, like he has said, we will get confirmed cases at the workplace. And the question is, how do we manage employees when we know there's a case of confirmed COVID in that environment? Because again, like he said, if we stigmatize one person who is sick, we have to remember we are all prone to getting this virus. So this virus is not just directed to any one particular person. Anyone can actually get it. And the same way you want to be treated if you get this COVID virus, then it's the same way you want to treat someone else. So again, confidentiality is very key for the people who are having to handle employees who are exposed to this COVID scenario. And to just give my closing remarks, I think what I would say to our viewers today, our listeners, it's important to realize that safety is a responsibility of everyone. It's your responsibility to ensure safety while at the workplace, while at home, wherever you are. Don't expect someone else to take responsibility over you. First, you take the responsibility. Then let the other person take the responsibility. And I think together we'll have a better working environment.
Awesome. Yes, James, do you have some closing remarks as we wind down?
Well, my closing remarks would just be to encourage people that, first of all, I know it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy dealing with this pandemic, even going forward. Times are going to be tougher, but we will survive this. We will get out of it, but you need to get out of it alive. So stay safe, so that you can always now tell people of 2018 or 2020, actually, the year when everything stopped, people had to repeat school. This is going to go down in the book of history. But for that to happen, for you to be telling that story, please stay safe. And stop listening to people saying Hakuna Corona, it's a political game for people to eat. My friend, stay safe. Let's realize walikuwa wanakula baadaye. Okay? Other than then you die, and then we'll be laughing at you saying those people who said this. So stay safe. For employers, please ensure that where it is inconveniencing, please take the inconvenience, because your business might come to a stop. When you look at the small cost of buying masks and sanitizers, the risk you run is of closing down that factory even for 14, 21, or even 30 days when all your people get sick. So let's all take responsibility and stop the spread.
Awesome. Thank you, James. That's a very punchy closing line. Stay safe. You are my listener. If you're running your business, if you're employed somewhere, take responsibility. Remember, you are responsible for yourself. You're responsible for the person next to you. If you're an employer, you're responsible of the employees that you have in your company. And if you take, that will be. So we want to appreciate you, James, for coming to our podcast today, giving us very very good pieces of advice concerning how we can handle workplace safety. And we look forward to having you come again sometime in the future. Hopefully, when we can be able now to talk about post-COVID, what are the things that you saw as an expert? What are the lessons that employers, the government, and all of us have learned, from all this? So, to you, my listener, if you'd like to know more about James, you can get in touch with us at aurumconsultants.co.ke, or at James is found at SafePro, www.safepro.co.ke, and he can be able to help you on matters workplace safety. So my closing remarks is to everyone who is listening: take care. Take care. Don't listen to innuendo or rumors. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Take care of your employees, and let's let's take care of ourselves and take care of our workplaces, and above all, be positive that we'll be able to overcome this thing and come out stronger. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.